So I'm playing along with some old Dire Straits live footage, trying to cop some Mark Knopfler, when I come across this really cool lick that he plays all the time that I haven't really heard anybody else play exactly like this. Check this out.
Sweet surrender.
It's this move right here. That thumb and index finger, palm muted, super fast chicken picking thing. Let's have a look at a different example of it here. That is just so cool and funky. It's actually a pretty simple lick when you get right down to it, but it's so versatile you can use it in a bunch of different situations. And if you can master this technique at a high speed, it opens the door to a bunch of different Mark Knopfler licks. So before we get into how Mark uses this in his soloing and how you can incorporate into your own playing, let's have a look at the basic lick. Let's grab our guitars, ditch the picks, and dive into this. Mark usually uses his thumb and index finger to alternate pick a single string. I'm on the 7th fret D string at a medium tempo and really trying to make every note ring out and sound clear. But this doesn't really sound like what he's doing, does it? Something is missing, and that key magic ingredient is the muting. Mark is using his left and right hand to mute the strings to his liking. You can go from wide open sound like this to a completely closed sound to a mix of them both and everything in between. You can think of it like a hi-hat on a drum kit, opening and closing, so you can select your level of muteness with how much pressure you apply on the strings. There are 3 places where we can mute the note, and each one lends itself to a different sound and effect. We can use the palm of our right hand to rest against the strings near the bridge to dampen the note without completely killing the sustain. We can use our left hand on the fretted note to alter how much pressure we apply to the string. Fully press down and slowly lifting off so it mutes the string, and back on. That's all in the left hand. And finally, and most importantly, we can use our thumb and index finger on our picking hand to completely stop the string from ringing out between each pluck. This gives the sound a much more staccato stop-and-go sound. Really take your time and experiment with the different levels of mute that you could achieve with all of these different ways of muting. Really picture that hi-hat opening and closing when you're playing. Here are a couple different ways that Knopfler uses this technique in his own soloing. Here on the intro to Down to the Waterline, Knopfler really uses this as a texture device. You can really hear the different levels of mute that he's using on his little run down the pentatonic scale.
Sweet surrender.
This is so much more interesting than if he had just used a plain old-fashioned alternate picking technique here. Here in Sultans of Swing, he uses a fully muted version of the lick to lead your ear into the quicker section of the solo. Using the fully muted version of this lick makes it more of a rhythm device than a texture device, and you can really hear that in this next example. In these last 2 examples, Mark busts out all the stops and uses this as a pyrotechnics, hey check me out type of lick. Now that you've learned the basic lick and you've seen a couple different ways that Mark uses it in his solo, let's do what every guitar player does when they learn a new lick and play the shit out of it. I'm going to play a little short jam here and show you how I might use it in my own playing. right, that is definitely enough noodling for one day. Hopefully with a little bit of practice, you can add this one into your own bag. Let me know down below, have you heard anybody else play the lick like this? I think I might have heard Jeff Beck play it a little bit, but I couldn't find any footage. If you do know of anyone, post it down below, let me know so I can check it out. And until next time, see you next week.